Welcome back to Bulletproof Mindset, your go-to podcast for health, fitness and entertainment. I'm your host, Dale Crossar, and today we are covering more fitness news topics. Today's topics, we cover everything from the recent Olympia bodybuilding, Chris Bumstead's retirement, and all the juicy gossip that went on behind the scenes with that. We then head over to the opposing world, which is the whole recent Hyrox events in Stockholm and Amsterdam. There was a major mess up from the organisers, so we dive into what happened there and some future predictions. There was also an athlete that got his time penalised because of a spectator submitting a video, which is all interesting stuff. And the last topic we covered was the new AI-powered dumbbells that looks to replace personal training and getting more people into fitness. Is it a gimmick or does it have any value at all? Tune into the episode to find out more. Now, as always with these episodes, look, if you're a long-term listener, there's a good chance that you've already left a 5-star rating, so thank you. I love you very much for that. But if you're new around here, every Monday and Thursday I release episodes at 6 a.m. I've not missed for the last 2 years and I don't plan on missing for the next 2. So if there's one way that you can support me, that is by leaving a little review or a little 5-star rating on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, consider subscribing, leave a comment below, and I'd love to know your weigh-in on some of the opinions that I had. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. If you get caught up in the whole running hype and you start underfeeding yourself and overtraining, you will end up a flabbier version of yourself. This came to mind as I thought of a few questions that came into my question box. That's going to be next episode where I dive into a Q&A, but a lot of people saying, how do I get rid of stubborn belly fat? And in conversations with clients that I've been working with recently, it's like, I just want to lose this area around here, but I feel it's always really, really hard to lose, like the site, my love handles, my lower back fat. And when diving deeper into these, into someone's lifestyle that maybe has this opinion of themselves, it's always from those who have chronically dieted and abused themselves in the gym. In other words, try to burn as many calories as possible. And what I've actually found is the burning of calories is usually from them signing up to a running event or them doing more and more running. Yes, running has its benefits. It's great for endurance. It's great for our VO2 max, our heart health. But the main reason people end up doing running is because they think they're going to get that body that they desire, and it's so far from the truth. It actually creates a flabbier body, not a kind of sculpted body that they're maybe after, or the toned body that they're after. And this is a byproduct of under consuming calories and overtraining, and I say overtraining in the sense of high intensity classes, spin runs, long distance runs, body pump, hit workouts, legs, bums and tums, all that bullshit. All the methods of training that play on your insecurities that say, here's the best workout to burn body fat. So this is your reminder. Scrap all that, right? You want to fuel your body for the right intensity that you're applying for that day. And I would go as far as saying, yes, obviously nutrition plays a massive part in your fat loss journey. And when you sort of break it down, keeping your calories in a certain range, and as long as you're consuming 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, staying within that range, that kind of allows all your focus and energy then to go into a workout that is focusing on building strength and building muscle. And this is what will get you the kind of body that you desire. But that's a whole separate conversation, because there's so much that we can go into on that when it comes to body image issues and all these sort of things. But the flabbier bodies are becoming more apparent because of these events like marathons, half marathons, run clubs. And there's very little spoken about, like, look, if you're going to pick one of these, let's make sure there's a good strength training program behind it, because it will lead to your demise with weaker joints, slower metabolism, and lack of energy if you start, especially if you start underfeeding yourself, which so many people are doing. And it's not because, I don't think people are doing it on purpose, if I'm being honest. I think most people live a lower calorie lifestyle for majority of their week. And if you've got a sort of 9 to 5 job Monday to Friday usually consists of the same rotation of meals, lower calorie, maybe 1-2 meals a day. gets to the weekend, there's a bit more alcohol or more of a binge and maybe more takeaways that sort of happens. But when you look at the overall average of the calorie consumed from Monday to Sunday, it's still in this lower state, so you're still underfed. You then layer in intensity of 5Ks, 10Ks, Hyrox simulations, Hyrox workouts, CrossFit, whatever it may be. It then starts leading down this path of, man, I'm struggling. I'm feeling really beat up. So that is your tip for today's episode. So speaking of today's episode, I thought it's been a while since we've updated you on some sort of fitness news. So today's episode is all around the hot topics in fitness right now. Now, looking back at this past week, the Olympia was the big thing. So for you who do not know what the Olympia is, best way to describe this is like it's the World Cup of bodybuilding. Is the Super Bowl for muscle, the sort of Broadway show for I'm trying to think of like an analogy. It's like the Oscars but for muscle, and this is the kind of grand finale of peak bodybuilding. I think every competitive bodybuilder dreams of getting to this stage and ultimately winning it, of course. So this past week, that show was on, and of course, if you don't know who Chris Bumstead is, then you're living under a rock. He is someone who has kind of pioneered the division of classic physique. And probably another side note, if you still don't know what I'm talking about, you basically have different categories that run from your open bodybuilding to your physique to your 212 to your classic. I think in total there is about 11 different categories, and some are more popular than others. The main one that people tune in for is, of course, the open bodybuilder. If anyone's heard of Arnold Schwarzenegger, again, if you haven't, what the fuck, bro? Come on, get your shit sorted out. But this is the whole era that made gyms popular. So every year it's good to see this event, and as much as I'm not as bought into the bodybuilding world, there's still a piece of my heart that lies in watching that show. So there was some big news sort of happening. This is up for debate. I put this on my Instagram story and I got a lot of back and forth, and I understand why. But as categories have more popularity, the cash prize that's up for grabs is obviously different. Now, open bodybuilding has always been the main driver. I think when I remember watching it, oh God, we're talking about 5-10 years ago, the cash prize was like $250,000, $1,000, sorry, and then it's jumped up to 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, and during that time, the classic physique was born. This is where you have people like Chris Bumstead, and the difference is that they have a weight cap that they can hit depending on their height, and they bring a different package, like a more tighter waist, and this sort of classical look that maybe stemmed from the 70s, 80s, and even I would maybe even say as early as the 90s as well, where this type of look that created this different division. And the reason that happened was open bodybuilding, for a long period of time, it was about who can be the most mass, right? Who can have the most mass, should I say? Who can pack on the most amount of size because there's no weight cap. Now, the debate I threw up on my stories was, my argument is, seeing how bodybuilding has evolved over the last couple of years, most people are driven by who we follow as internet personalities, and Chris Bumstead has one of those, just such a wholesome personality, and if you watch any of his YouTube, that's the sort of vibe you get from him. And usually when people get to the top, they do want to try and tear them down, but I never saw this from any sort of hatred that's been thrown Chris's way. I don't know what it is about him. He's just such a likeable guy. Now, as he started competing in 2018, and for the last 6 years has continued to dominate the classic physique division. Now, as he's grown as I don't want to say influencer, as a bodybuilder, should I say, he is drawing a ton more support and attention to the Olympia stage and bodybuilding in general. I think any person that's working out in the gym has heard of Chris Bumstead, and before it was like Arnold, Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman. These were all the big open competitors. So with the new rise of that division, it can be expected for the first year that the difference in pay would be massive. Now, I've not got the exact numbers here, but I'm kind of freeballing here, so I'll be off slightly, but the range is still kind of different. Now, I remember Chris winning one of his first classic shows. He was against a competitor called Breon, and Breon won it the year before, and Chris came in and then won it the year after. And I remember seeing the check, and it was $10,000. And I thought, wow, like for me looking at this as a spectator, I think this category has a lot more popularity than the open, but obviously it was still new, so it's expected. And then I watched the open bodybuilding, and then the check was like $300,000 or $400,000 for first place. And I was like, wow, that is massive in terms of the difference. But as I said, expected to see at the start. Now, as this sport has grown over the last couple of years, Chris is just dominating, and if you look at the followers that he has on Instagram or across all his social media channels and YouTube, he is the guy. He is the person who has pioneered the space for classic physique, pushed way more competitors into the sport of classic and even open bodybuilding. Now, it's great to see as the sport's grown, the cash prizes have got bigger and bigger, but the difference still remains of last week's event, where the top prize of open bodybuilding was £600,000 or $600,000, sorry, and the cash prize for first place in classic physique, which Chris won, was $60,000. So to me, I still think that is an unfair advantage. So I threw this up in my story, and this was the back and forth debate I had people kind of messaging. Now, look, I get it. Open bodybuilding is it's like the OG, the original attraction of the sport. People like to see these freaks of nature. So combine someone who is genetically gifted and then apply the discipline, the hard work, the just pure dedication and commitment to their whole life, pushing them towards this stage. I get all that, but I still argue and still stand by the point that the cash prize should be kind of dictated on who's driving more followers to the sport. Now, how do you measure that? That is the good old question, and I think that's really what the argument comes down to. You simply can't. Now, the open is like the be-all and end-all, and someone raised a very good point in this. In open bodybuilding, there is substantially a hell of a lot more health risks because there's no weight category. People are pushing the boundaries. And death in bodybuilding has been something that's often criticised. I think the world that we live in today, the great thing about social media is it's kind of maybe pushed athletes to have more blood work done and be a little bit more open with the types of cycles that they take and all this sort of stuff. There is a little bit of shade on that where people aren't being quite true on the dosages that they're taking. But the argument does stand that these guys are putting more on the line in the open category, so should be rewarded in that from a financial standpoint. Now, by no means necessary is any of these guys competing for your cash prize. I mean, these guys are lucky if their cycles are covered with this cash prize. You might be thinking, what, $60,000? I'd be fucking living a great lifestyle if I got that in one paycheck. That is not the case. They are generally spending that in food, merchandising, and steroid cycles alone. Some of them hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands for their cycles, especially in the open category. So I get it, but it's an interesting point. I want to know what you think. Should Classic be paid more than what it was paid this year? So it was $60,000 for first place, and first place for the open category was $600,000. So a massive difference. Now, what happened this past week was C-Bum, or Chris Bumstead, went on to win his 6th title, dominated the category. There was some good contenders. A guy called Mike Somerville, I think, came out of the blue. He hasn't placed in the top 3 this past year or past couple of years, and he came in with a fantastic package. Should I say? Seems a wee bit no homo with this sort of stuff, but I don't have a bodybuilding eye. I think if any of you guys listen to the episode with Andy Scott, there is an eye that you need to have: the detail, the lines, how much conditioned an individual is, the proportion sizes, etc. But you could clearly see that Chris Bumstead just stood out from the rest, and it all comes down to like how well developed his back is. That is the one that separates him from the pack, from the rest of the guys that he competes against. And he went on to win his 6th title and has announced his retirement. And I think a lot of people seen this coming with the recent brand deal with Gymshark. This is him kind of setting up his future assets. I think Chris Bumstead's net worth, let me find it. So it's really hard to kind of search this, because you put in someone's net worth and it always spits out like random numbers. But as far as athletes go, Chris is definitely one of the more popular athletes, which will bring more brand deals, endorsements and all this sort of stuff. So him announcing his retirement will be very interesting to see where this sport goes. And I think one of the reasons Chris Bumstead has been so popular is because he's went on to win one title after the other, after another. And we've seen this in open bodybuilding. Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath. But for, maybe the last 6-7 years, I think since Sean Roden won the open category, there hasn't been someone that's went into that category and just dominated the sport. And it brings up an interesting point. Is this maybe one of the reasons why some of these open bodybuilders, not that they're not as popular, but they don't get as much traction as what Chris has? Or they don't, I don't know, it's a hard one to kind of maybe gauge. But if you look back, so just looking, double checking there. So Sean Roden won in 2018. Rest in peace to him. Obviously, I think he was accused or got prosecuted for the sexual assault and all this sort of stuff. But since 2018, like, the list of winners for the open category has been Brandon Curry, 2019. Big Ramy went on to win it 2 years in a row, 2020, 2021. It was then Hadi in 2022. Derek Lunsford in 2023, and then as of the most recent year, which is great to see a bit of UK representation, was Samson Denoon. I can't even say the name properly, but is it Deuda? This could be one of the main reasons it doesn't get as much, or it isn't as popular to the average lifter, to the average gym goer. And I like bodybuilding. I think it's definitely something that's brought more people into the gym, but with that comes a bit of a downside, because everyone thinks going to the gym you have to be a bodybuilder, when it's so far from the truth. There's so much more benefits you can reap from lifting weights inside the gym. But everyone goes into the gym with the initial idea of, I love the way these bodybuilders look, so I'm going to start training like them. And look here, each to their own. It's up to you to find your passion, your path within either the sport of bodybuilding or just your fitness in general. And yes, there's maybe arguments to the whole body dysmorphia and it not being a healthy pursuit, but bodybuilding is different to the kind of average gym lifters. And I think something that when people aspire to look a certain way, this is why the classic physiques had more of an attraction, because the funny thing with like open bodybuilding, like the average person that looked at that category, it was always like, ooh, why do you want to look like that? And I vividly remember this being kind of 16, 17 years old, and I was like, yeah, I never want to be that size. But see, as you start to mature in your weightlifting journey, you start looking at it and you appreciate the graft and art that goes into the sculpting of some of these guys' body. And you're like, yeah, that's fucking badass. I want to be that size. And it starts to feed into you. Now, in that period of time, the classic physique division opened up, which brought this kind of smaller individual to proportioned to their height and weight and all that sort of stuff. So very interesting this past week. It'll be very interesting to see where the sport goes. Obviously, Chris Bumstead is going to continue to be probably a fantastic internet personality, and he's definitely up there with one of the Hall of Fames. If you look back at, you think about who's some of the most influential bodybuilders of just generations. Arnold Schwarzenegger's up there, of course. You got the likes of Phil Heath, you got Jay Cutler. Chris Bumstead is definitely someone that stands in that category now as well. And it'll be interesting to see if the popularity of the sport continues or if it dies off. And time will tell. Time will tell. I'd love to know what you guys think below. Now, I may as well kind of comment on a few of the other ones. I would say there is one division that I never really not that I didn't care too much of, but I've never really paid much attention to since Flex Lewis stopped competing in it. I think he had one of the best all-rounded physiques, and that was the 212 category. And basically this means that you cannot have your weight surpass 212 pounds. Now, the 212 category this year, the man that won that was Keon Pearson. And as far as balanced, symmetry, conditioning, muscle mass goes, this man, I would say, has had one of the most perfect physiques that you could ever look at. And this is the untrained eye. And I've spoke to a few of my friends who are in the world of competing, of bodybuilding, and they all agree that this man brought a conditioning package to the stage that is generally maybe going to go on a rampage with the similarities to the likes of how Flex Lewis did. So again, if you look at that category alone, Flex Lewis dominated the sport. I think, how many times did he win? So it was from 2014, I think. Yeah, so Flex Lewis kind of started to retire in 2018 and held the title for, 2012, right? So 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then retiring, stepping down from the category in 2018. So I think when someone goes on to continue to win these titles, it brings a bit of hype with it. It brings more traction. Because sort of winning a title one-off, you're like, that's cool. Kind of congrats to that guy. Hearing that guy win it for the second time, the third time, the fourth time, you start paying attention to, oh man, this guy's shit hot. So yeah, time will tell. And I think when you look at, like, 212 has its caps with the weight, same with classic, physique we'll come on to in a little sec, but open, I think open, because there's no weight cap, it shifted from this classical look through the 70s, 80s, and then as we moved into the 90s, it became about mass. As we moved into the early 2000s, again, it became about these pure mass giants, and it's sort of like shifting as of the last 5 years. And it'll be interesting to see where the look goes, because if you look at the most recent years compared to even just like prior to Phil Heath winning, there was a massive difference with how it just looked at how big could someone be. When Big Ramy won it, I think seeing his conditioning come in, just like no one can stand like beside him, because he just dwarfs them in terms of the size and the pure mass that this man has. But it'll be interesting to see where it ends up unfolding. Okay, now on to the men's physique division. Men's physique division is the one where they wear the board shorts and is often clowned upon by other veteran bodybuilders. But ultimately, we're just in a new era of growing up. Not everyone wants to aspire to be this just pure muscle mass, and especially from a health condition standpoint, I think we're more savvy of, look, if there's boundaries going to be pushed when it comes to the muscle mass, there is a risk versus reward that most people aren't prepared to take. Now, these are always referred to as weekend warriors, which I always laugh at. And even Chris Bumstead has actually said, I could never do the open category. These guys are on a different level, which is it's quite impressive to see coming from someone of his standard and calibre. So men physique, there was 2 years running in a row, Ryan Terry. But I believe, I couldn't find anything on Instagram, but I just seen a few news articles which isn't confirmed that he may also be retiring. And again, this was a great year for the UK, where Ryan Terry won and then Samson won the open category. So pretty impressive, kind of putting our name out there on the map and getting the kind of maybe title back from the Dorian Yates days. So that is your news on bodybuilding this week. Now, making a very drastic shift over to the other world of fitness, which is Hyrox. So Hyrox, the new season has just kicked off. There is 2 races now under our belt, which was Stockholm, and the most recent event was Amsterdam. Very interesting thing happened this past weekend. The times that I'm seeing on some of these races is incredible. Incredible in the sense of, if I was aiming for an hour 10 Hyrox, which is very impressive, by the way, you are now lucky if you're in the top 100 for some of these races. How mad. Like, if you just go back last year and the year before, the 1 hour to 1 hour 10 category, you were finishing in the top 10. That's how popular this sport's got, and this is how the standards are starting to increase. And you see this if you go back to bodybuilding. You see that with bodybuilding. If you look at the shapes that these guys are bringing to the stage from the last 10 years, and you compare winner after winner after winner, they just get better and better and better, bigger, bigger and bigger. And the same is going to happen with Hyrox when it comes to this fitness race. We're going to get faster and faster and faster. So starting with the Elite 15, with got Graham Halliday representing Scotland. I think he's already qualified for the Worlds, which is awesome. This year the Worlds is in Chicago, which is going to be, I must admit, it'd be cool to qualify and experience that. Me and Jill have got that coming up 10 days from now. But if I'm being brutally honest with you guys, the training has not been there. We've been pretty consistent with training in general, but I had mapped out a programme and I've not been following through in those days. And it's just one of these things that balancing our focus on running a business together and try to put in the training effort as well. We've just, I guess, simply dropped the ball on that. One thing that affected a massive part of this has been our sleep. Our sleep routine. One of the best things about Gillian working in her corporate job compared to when I was kind of running my own thing was her corporate job meant she started at a time, she finished at a time. So what did that mean? When I got home, I was kind of forced into that routine where we went to bed at this time, we got up at this time. Since becoming business owners together, husband and wife, partner and partner, we've sort of had late nights at the gym. It's like, fuck it. Like, this is a flexibility of we can just work late and then we can just get up a wee bit later the next day. And that royally fucked us. I have to be brutally honest. That fucked us over big time because we're two people who train first thing in the morning. And that whole, like, yeah, we'll just work out a wee bit later in the day. The priority of working out just it just get bumped down the list because we had certain things to do. So we have Madrid coming up, next weekend when we're releasing this episode. This weekend, so at the point of this episode being released, this coming weekend, we'll be competing. And if you head over to the YouTube channel, not the Bulletproof Mindset one, but the Bulletproof Coaching page, we're going to start putting up a couple of vlogs if you want to tune in there. But back to the news of Hyrox, because something very interesting happened this past weekend with the Amsterdam. So Amsterdam times were fucking crazy. So let's start with the Elite 15. They kicked off in Amsterdam on Thursday. The Alexander Ronsevic, if that's how you pronounce his name, he is the reigning champion of the 23-24 season. He smashed it. He finished it in 54 minutes and 7 seconds. So again, incredibly quick times. When you look at the rest of the 15 competitors there, I think everyone, each in their own, done pretty well. And over in the women's category, again, 58 minutes and 12 seconds for Lauren Weeks from America. So very interesting to see the women time. In fact, very impressive to start with, but it'll be very interesting to see how the season's affected with the change to the 100 wall balls and all that sort of stuff that come into play. But absolute units. Now, a bit of a fuck up happened from the organisers at Amsterdam this past weekend. So they had dropped the ball with the measurements when it comes to the lunges and the burpees. So you guys who don't know this, they basically mark out the territory for the Elite 15. They go up and back down and they measure these square boxes. But they had made that, I think it was, they've not actually said how short it was, but they didn't realise this until everyone competed. So everyone's getting these banging times and they've had to adjust everyone's times. And to make it fair, they've added 36 seconds on for the men and added 44 seconds on for the women. So be interesting to know where you stand on this one. But a bit of a fuck up. At least it's not in one of the main events. Well, it actually is. It's one of the qualifiers. So the qualifying places haven't been affected, but everyone's times has been adjusted in accordance to that. Now, what I couldn't find out, was this for everyone or was it just for the major event? I've just realised when I've said that, the major event is the whole event of Amsterdam, so it's not been realised until time has passed. So a very big fuck up indeed. Hopefully, lesson learned. I think this would be one of the biggest challenges that doesn't come to mind for us all, is having the location different each time you do these and try to keep the standards the same. It's one of them that, human error, these things sort of happen, and hopefully a lesson is learned and it doesn't happen, especially on the Madrid one, because that is the one I'm going to be doing. Now, one other thing I want to bring up, right, this is very interesting. I'm going to read this out, right? So a fan, or a spectator, should I say, was just filming athletes competing, not in the Elite 15, just general races like men's open, men's pro, women, etc. And a guy called Sean Noble finished his men's pro wave in Amsterdam with a personal record of 56 minutes and 34 seconds, earning him first place in his age group. Now, he is qualified for the World Championship in Chicago with that time, which is excellent to see. All good things. Now, the spectator managed to catch his lunges on video, and on his last length, they were found out that he was taking an extra step. And in that extra step, it obviously goes against the rule books. Like, you're meant to be lunging 1 foot in front of the other. You can't just stand up with the sandbag on your back and kind of shuffle forward, because that defeats the purpose of the lunges that you're doing. So this video captured that in the grass of this fucking spectator, submitted that to Hyrox, and Hyrox has officially adjusted his time and gave him a penalty for the going against the rule book. Now, this is interesting. This is really interesting. Now, I think, if I'm being honest, something like that's pretty obvious on a video should have been picked up from the judges. I imagine on the day there's so much going on, it can be incredibly hard, but usually when you come into each one of the stations of Hyrox, a judge, so for example, we came into the walking lunges and the burpees, and there was one judge looking at us. Now, when there was more people in the burpee station, that one judge has to look over a couple of people. So maybe something that these guys have to change. But I've seen this happen a few times. I've actually seen wall balls where people are going halfway and they're not getting called out on it. So to keep the standards the same, it's going to be very, very interesting. So I don't know if he's been stripped of his title or his time's been taken off him. I don't know if he's been the qualifier for the championships has been kind of taken off him either, but it'll be very interesting to see where this goes. What do you think? Do you think fans submitting a video of an angle that may be a bit disingenuous of how you're actually performing should be submitted into Hyrox? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. The only reason I'm saying that, because I can squat from and have the camera angle like off center to the side, and the depth doesn't look the same. So I think now that Hyrox have kind of opened up this can of worms to say, look, yeah, we've adjusted the time, we hear your concern, and we've amended it. They're trying to do right by someone submitting that evidence. Now, we don't know what that evidence looks like. So I don't think spectators sending videos into the kind of official Hyrox inbox should be a common thing. I think we just need to get more judges involved and set the right standard with each judge. Some judges can be absolute dickheads and some other ones can be pretty decent, but I think it's one of those things that the less human error we can have in it, the better. The wall ball targets, obviously, setting the score automatically, but then again, technology can fail on us, because I think it was Michael, is it Sandbag or Sanders on the Elite 15 Championship, his ended up resetting when he was on 60, and it can just kill your momentum. It genuinely can. You're like, fuck, what number I'm on, and you're trying to keep in the zone as you're continuing through it. So this is going to be an exciting season. I think there's going to be a lot more shit happening, but I'm all here for it, and I'll keep you guys updated with these once a month fitness news podcasts. Okay, and on to the last news story for you. There is a new AI powered dumbbells, the world's first AI powered dumbbells. Now, a while ago we done an episode on will AI replace personal training, and this is it. My career is over, and I'm going to lose it to this new technology called this company's called Kabata Dumbbells. Got a quite cool name to it. Is it? Fuck it, I ain't losing my job anytime soon. But basically, it's one of those adjustable dumbbells. If you've seen it, this is great for home workouts, by the way. If you've got a house gym and you always want to save in space if you've got a garage set up. So utilising dumbbells that just sit in one place and you sort of twist the handles and adjust the weight. Usually goes from like 2.5 kilos up to, the one I seen in factory weights the other day was actually up to 30 kilos, which was very impressive. So this is basically the same setup. Very minimalistic look, very sleek look, but it comes with its own app, it comes with its own program, and in that program it's measuring the velocity, the speed, the power. It's somehow measuring fatigue, which I assume is just the speed of the reps slowing down, how hard you're squeezing the dumbbells, etc, etc. Now, this is, if I'm being honest, as much as this is someone's heart, passion and soul that's been kind of put into this to bring a new product to market, I think it's all pretty much a gimmick. I don't think it's truly going to have that substantial or that impact on us. There's been things like, I think it's called the toner. I can't remember what it is, but it was like it was a cable resistance, and the cable resistance seemed pretty good, but at the end of the day, this is not going to replace personal trainers. It's not going to replace your workout structure. It's going to be one of those things that you do, and you might get caught up in it for a little while, but I can already personally see a few loopholes. So let's say, okay, it's trying to measure, okay, we want you to do 10 reps today. And tomorrow we want you to do X reps, and we want you to do this intensity, and we want you to do this slow and controlled. I think all that stuff's great that can be built into a program, but ultimately you cannot check form. This is the one downside of AI just now. You cannot, everyone's body's different, everyone's speed's different, everyone's tempo's going to be different depending on the length of their limbs, and this will not pick that up. I'm already seeing like the reverse lunge that the lady's doing in this demonstration. It's a half rep, and the speed that Russian twists are being carried out is rapid. The guy's punching the air with dumbbells as well. Again, all exercises that do they truly have their value? Maybe, but for me, it all come back to form, and I don't think this technology is quite there yet to check the technique. So everything that I've kind of ran through today, there's going to be links to it in the show notes. Definitely check them out. I think the design of it is pretty cool. I think the product itself would be pretty cool to have, but the whole be coached by an AI, yeah, okay, you might save a couple of quid by not hiring a coach, but I'd still say the coach ranks more superior than the AI. So these are coming in at £311, which, if I'm being honest, ain't that bad. Wait, whoa. Surely not. £300,000? No fucking way. Hang on, let me see if I've got this right. Save $400. No, thank you. Yeah, so this is retailed at £1,000 just now, and that's including the yearly membership to the AI software. And that's another thing that's really where the moneymaker is going to be for these companies. The equipment itself has to be manufactured and produced and shipped and all that sort of stuff. But the more that can be transitioned to an online format, like this AI software, the kind of more profit and the main driver of the force. I'm not saying it's completely irrelevant. There's definitely, it's going to be something, and don't get me wrong, if it encourages a few people to try out lifting weights, but the main thing is there going to be true longevity in people using this? I really don't think so. I think gyms are essential. I think home gyms are essential, and I think the need for good personal trainers is what's really going to help fight against the kind of under-muscled and overweight society that we're heading towards, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't think this is a solution. It's another tool to be used, but it's not going to drive more people to work out just because it's AI. And let's be honest, let's say we work up to 20 kilos of weight with certain exercises. I've got clients who've never stepped foot in a gym that have been working with me, and inside the first 3 months, we need heavier weights. We need to utilise different exercises. So confining just to the dumbbells is great. It's a great strategy to start with, but it has its loopholes, and that is another major loophole that I see. So there you have it. That is today's fitness news on bodybuilding, Hyrox, and the AI-powered dumbbells, Kabata. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on some of the topics that we covered. And if you like these episodes, then look, leave a wee comment. Share the video on Instagram, tag me at bulletproofmindset __ or at Coach Crossar. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.